There are a lot of opinions out there right now about high school football, recruiting, transfers, what wins, what doesn't. But how often do we actually hear from someone who's been in it day in and day out, building a program from the ground up? And today we've got that perspective with our guest. Coach Pat New, former head coach at Benet Academy, joins us. And we're not putting you on the hot seat today, Pat, coach, just so you know.
Oh, okay, that's good.
All right. We just want to talk football, talk about the game, get your perspective now that you've had some time to step back and see things from a different angle. And what actually matters, what's changed, and what parents, players, and fans need to understand about the game today. Because if you care about high school sports and football, this is the kind of conversation you want to hear. So I welcome you, Pat, to the podcast again. This time as a former head coach. Last time we had you on, we were interviewing you as the head coach. So, but I wanted to ask you guys.
Relaxed.
He does. He looks very relaxed.
Blood pressure's low.
So I have this recurring dream, guys, and it's that one day I get a email or a letter in the mail, and it says that I still have 1 year of eligibility left to play college football. So if I try and interpret that dream, it's like maybe I'm missing playing college football. Right. And I'm not sure if that's it or not, but, I wanted to ask you, Pat, since you've retired as coach, have you started to have any dreams yet like that?
No, but I had them as a player.
Did you really?
It was a recurring dream. And it was always, I'm in the locker room and the crowd is out there and the game's ready to go. And I'm in the locker room and I forgot my helmet and I looking all over for it. And that happened like 3 or 4 times. So I don't know what that means either, but.
I've had a couple. Yeah. I've had a couple that I am supposed to be playing and I am my current age and in my current physical condition and I remember at one point I looked, I think Brendan Bentley was in it. And I said, Brendan, I can't even run. I said, what am I supposed to do? They want me to do like a physical fitness test. I can't even run. And one time I left Brendan at the dorm and went to practice without him. So I had that one too. So yeah, I guess I do have some, but I don't feel like I miss it. No. I feel like especially not practice.
No, right. You miss the games, right?
Yeah, the games are awesome. Yeah, school and college, the games are just awesome.
For sure.
Yeah.
Football. If I can add something, football to me, the analogy I've always used is it's like that ride at the amusement park that you have to wait 60 minutes for. And then it only takes a minute and it's a great ride that 1 minute, but it's like the off season and the 9 months of training in the off season and all this build up. And then you play once a week. That's it. So it's like that, now that, I'm helping out with softball and I've been involved with baseball in the past. And it's like, those sports you play 3-4 times a week, but football is so different that way.
Yeah. What do you think you'll miss the most about being a head coach, Pat?
I think for me, it was always the relationship with the players and the coaches and, all my best memories were stuff like that. And then always getting, another great memory was winning the games you weren't supposed to win. Those were great memories too. Yeah. And those were awesome.
It'll be interesting, right? When next season rolls around and the first game, I'm sure you'll probably be out there watching, right? But, still it's going to feel a little bit different, I would think. I know it does for players and former players too, but having done something for so long and done it at a certain level it's going to be a little bit something missing, I would think.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's interesting because I drive by the practice field and I look around and I have zero emotion about it. I mean, I'm not
right now.
Yeah. Right now, it's just very relaxed and happy. So
that's nice. That's definitely a nice feeling.
It is nice. Yeah. Are you seeing more clearly now, or what do you see more clearly now that you don't have all this other stuff and noise going on?
Yeah. Well, there was, I used to always call it the football fog. For 3 months, you were constantly thinking of things you had to do and plays and to-do lists. And it was constant. You were constantly living in this fog. And then when the season was over, you'd come out of the fog. So the fog's been lifted and I'm out of the fog.
Permanently.
Yeah, exactly.
Permanently. Yeah. Hopefully. Permanently.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. I have a question for you, Pat, about retirement. So can you tell us what coach you hate conference? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, don't answer that.
Yeah, and I could answer that. In all honesty, it would be zero.
Yeah, you've told me that before. You said they're all really good guys. Even though Racky said he hates you, but I'm just kidding.
Right.
But Joe, he has said that. I'm always like, are there any coaches that you're like, yeah? And he's like, no, they're all good guys, good football guys, and
especially in this conference too. I mean, it's and football guy. Like I used to always say, I used to always joke around. He's a football guy, and there's football guys are cool guys. I like them,
they're definitely cut from similar cloth in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. Things have changed a lot, right? With football and with high school sports over the course of your tenure, right? And I just think if you look at it, you live it from day to day or whatever it might be, but it's really evolving quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Not only from a standpoint of the players and the types of offenses and defenses that are being played, the types of players, I just feel like they're so much bigger and more athletic these days than they were when I played. Now that's not a huge surprise, but I just feel like the evolution of high school sports and high school football too has just been over the last decade, to 15 years. The change is just incredible to me.
Yeah, I don't know though. As you were talking about that, as far as the size and speed. Before I was at Benet, I was at Naperville North in the DVC.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, were there great players and speed and hitting. And I mean, I really can't, I don't really think there's much difference from the DVC in the 90s and what I see today in terms of that's my own opinion. Yeah.
Do you think though that one thing that I think as I've seen is a collection of talent, and maybe we are, I'm sure we're going to talk about talent acquisition and keeping talent and that, but the collection of talent, especially in the blue, or I always hate to say top and bottom, but the top three divisions size wise, and their collections of talent is amazing. It's kind of those guys that you talk about in the DVC from back in the 90s. There's each team had 2, 3. These teams have a dozen,
For sure.
of top end talent.
Yeah. And if you look at, and I was going to do this and I was teaching hard all day in the classroom. But you just do a search at the IHSA website of champions from 1990 till now. The last 2 years has been all CCL dominant. It's been CCL domination. So yeah, to your point, the collection of talent has definitely seemed to shift to the CCL because, I know when I first started, I started in 2010 and it was, Glenbard West had won a couple and Naperville Central and
Wheaton Warrenville South.
Warrenville South won a bunch, Lincoln Way East. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And man, it is just been domination. So yeah, that's a big change too over the last especially over the last like 3 or 4 years, I think.
What about we talked about this on several episodes, but the responsibilities have changed a ton as well, I would think, over the last decade or so. And, not only for the head coach, but if you're going to address a lot of the things that are going on in high school sports these days, whether it's around, recruitment and NIL and transfers and, all the other things, dealing with club teams as well. What kind of stress did that put on, or does that put on, a head coach?
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, contact RE/MAX Realtor and Circle of Legends recipient Christopher Cobb. Let Chris's extensive negotiating experience work to guide you on all of your real estate buying and selling needs. Contact Christopher now to discuss the right strategy for your personalized real estate buying and selling plan. His number is 630-420-0070, or you can visit his website at christophercobb.com.
Well, that's what, when I made the comment about teaching hard all day, it made me think that to me is one of the greatest changes. Because when I was, when I was an assistant coach at Naperville North in the 90s, my goal was to be a high school head coach. And so I had to go get certified because everybody was a teacher. And now that's one of the biggest changes. And I swear, I go to the the all conference banquet or something. I believe Jaworski from Joliet Catholic teaches, and I'm pretty sure there are like I could be wrong on this, but I believe there are 2 full-time teachers out of the 24 schools, and everybody else just coaches. I mean, they've got dean duties or administrative duties or recruitment duties, but to teach and coach, that's, I think, a huge difference, because back in the day, everybody had their 5 classes, and I think with the workload of all the things you're dealing with, it's a 12-month program, and the player development, and dealing with fundraising and boosters and parents and everything else. It is 100% a full-time job.
Yeah. So, I always think that you can't put that all on the head coach, at this point. And I don't think it's going to get better.
Yeah.
Right. If anything, it's going to get worse. I mean, we've talked about, do high schools need, an AD in charge of operations, right? Kind of like a general manager or something like that, to take some of that off of the coaches. Do you think that's a viable approach, or do you see high schools maybe considering that and heading in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, I look at college. I mean, I think
Mhm.
I didn't when that first move Belichick made at North Carolina, was hired a GM. I
The
think
GM, right?
yeah,
Yeah, our alma mater, Northwestern, has a GM.
yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. And I, back when you started and I was on staff, I don't ever remember talking about transfers one way or the other. You might have one because someone moved, or a kid came from out of state, or now it is almost like I feel like there's a window where it's just like the transfer portal in college, but there's no portal. It's just, you see it on social media, you see that someone, and we see it a lot.
yeah,
It's not one or two, it's not a kid who's moving from out of state, or
right,
someone who, whatever. It is like, I am transferring, picture in my football uniform, I'm going to this school. They don't necessarily say I'm transferring for athletics, but that's kind of what's implied by the social media, and it was never a discussion. That was
I
never
know,
a discussion when
never,
and Joe, I think about when Pat started, and called me in, and wanted me to help out, and we looked at Bennett's weight room, and it needed to be updated. And it was like, boy, if we could just get this weight room updated, we'd be able to lift as a group and do all these things, and it'd be a huge difference maker. And I remember Pat saying, as we kind of went on, then lifting programs, he always would say, got you to par. That was, if you had a lifting program, now you were just even with everyone else.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily like that when we started. You could still be a bigger, stronger team and push people around because you had a good representation in the weight room. Now that's just, it's expected,
right,
and it's everything else that is kind of, I feel like, where in the off season, you have to kind of set yourself apart, either by retaining your own players, or seeing if there's people that, if anyone's interested in transferring, are you on their list of potential schools? It's a to me, it feels like a huge part of it. I don't know if it is, and that's again from the outside looking in, but it's certainly happening. So it's
Yeah.
making a difference in these teams and what they're putting on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's no longer under the radar. I
Right.
mean, like it used to be, where, you would hear it, somebody would whisper it to somebody else, and then, oh, really? That happened. Now, like you said, the kids on social media are putting together artwork and saying, I'm going to continue my academic and athletic career at this new school. I'm transferring there for my last year, and the rule is you can transfer once after your freshman year, but it cannot be for athletic purposes. Right now, you can get around that, and obviously, a lot of people do. And it's getting more prevalent, right, from year to year. So I don't know. It's interesting to see where that's going to head, right? Because it does. You're right, Dan. It makes a huge difference in some programs to pick up one or two star level players, guys who
Yeah.
really make a difference. I mean,
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference at the high school level, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pat. I mean, how often did you say, we would say, God, we're one offensive lineman away,
Right. No
you
doubt.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. Oh, no doubt. You're always like, man, we're missing a guy here and missing a guy there. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, I think a lot of this is all, I think you guys have talked about it in previous shows, and it's so much of it is trickle down from
Hmm.
college, and with NIL, that has changed everything. And, I talk to kids, football, basketball too, because obviously we've got just amazing basketball players here, but like a lot of them, the game plan is you're going to start at this school knowing that you want to perform. And then it's almost like a farm system. You're going to move up and try to work your way to Power 5 or Power 4 conferences now, and so I think there's a lot of trickle down. And I look back too, Dan and I went through the recruiting process together, and, had some options, and it was always campus life, academics, the football team. And now it's about one thing. If I'm being
Right.
recruited today, it's about one thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
always joke on the show that there you can answer every question, with follow the money, and it's
Yeah.
really true,
Yeah.
so
yeah, I mean, do you think well, you just kind of mentioned it, Pat, but from a recruiting standpoint, I think the kids or the athletes realize this now too, right? That it's like, hey, I may have to go to this school that
Right.
might be a notch below what I was thinking I was going to go, or I was being told where I was going to go, put a year in there, prove myself, and then, jump from there to, to the bigger program and with more NIL money, whatever it might be.
Right.
It seems like a lot of that's happening too, where the high school kids are called the big squeeze, right, Dan?
yeah.
They're getting squeezed from a recruiting standpoint. And the college teams are getting older, right? Because kids are sticking around
Yeah.
at the good programs because they're making more money.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if wouldn't it have been nice to make 65 grand,
Oh,
and like everyone would have stayed for their 5th year,
my God.
if it,
Yeah. I
you
was
know?
poor. I was poor as hell, man, in college. I remember
Right.
like going to, and I happen to have a family in college too. So, but going out to dinner, I was like, I put it on a credit card. I had no money at all. It was terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. It would have been a nice, and that's, the fact that that doesn't necessarily happen anymore. That's a good thing.
Right.
I think that's a good thing. I think there's good and bad. The bad is like now the $100 handshakes are $50,000 handshakes, and they're
Right.
above board. But, I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing for the game. But,
Yeah.
you know, the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is as far as, it used to be, Joe, you talked about things being whispered under the table and hush hush. And Coach Lynch from Mount Carmel kind of said it. I don't know if it was this year or last year. He said, I don't know why we are, talking about recruiting as if it doesn't happen. He's like, we've got to recruit every student that comes to Mount Carmel. They've got a
Right.
choice for a public league. And I think that is so well said,
Right.
and granted, they've got a great draw if you're a football player in that
Right.
in that area and
Yeah.
beyond. But, Pat, that I felt like that also this is from like a junior high perspective too. You've got to be aware of where kids are thinking about going to high school
Yeah.
now, and you can sway them one direction or another. Where when we were making that choice 100 years ago, there maybe you were unique. I thought you maybe were considering other schools other than Bennett, but I know for me it was like I've talked about it on the program before. My parents were like, "You're going to Bennett, so
Yeah.
you can think all you want." But now it's every kid. He's like, "Well, I'm deciding between you and however many other schools." That's a huge change.
Yeah.
Right. And
You
then
know,
to say that, and that is the thought process now for these kids coming up, through the youth programs, that they've got choices. And then to say that you can't recruit them, right? or that's against the rules, it's just, I don't know. It's
yeah.
Well,
I mean,
and I love what Jordan Lynch said. And I think, I will tell you, from a truly economic standpoint, my plan is, um, I'm not retiring from teaching. I plan to teach for another 10 years. So let's see, 10 years, that's another 10 incoming freshman classes, or, 6 more incoming freshman classes that I need Benet to acquire. And if we don't do that and we don't have kids, I'm not going to make 10 years, So,
Right.
so yeah, it becomes an existential issue. And we have to attract kids who are willing to pay tuition and fill the seats. It's an important part of our survival as private schools.
Right.
Yeah. And even outside of football, or sports, you
Right.
need to have kids who might be interested in an art program, or they're interested in something else, or they're interested in a high level math, career, or something that they want to be pushed and challenged. You've got to hope you have the right curriculum for them. So you can keep the doors open. Literally.
Right.
It's not just going to happen because you're in Lyle, on the edge of Lyle and Naperville, and you've got a certain district of kids that have to go there, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you see and I've seen this on just over the last several weeks, people talking about, there's a couple threads out there on X where some coaches and some athletic directors are talking about or posting about the modern student athlete and the me versus we approach that is really kind of taking hold with athletes. And I mean, I can see that with some of them. I mean, but I'm not around them all the time, right? So I don't know if that's really, really the case, or is it as over the top as some of these coaches and athletic directors are saying. But I mean, are you seeing more of that, or did you see more of that as time went on, Pat? Where it's less about the team and more about the individual.
Well, I think just the nature of social media has created
Mm-hmm.
overall in society has created much more of a me approach. And, I've heard, I think it was Dan Lanning from Oregon talks about, we're not playing for clicks. And, and I, and again, I say this not as a complaint at all. I think it's hilarious. I was joking yesterday. We had pictures for softball, and our girls, as they were waiting in a line, were doing all these TikTok video dances and stuff.
Right.
And I made the comment, I said, man, I remember being in high school thinking the old guys were there was such a generation gap, like they didn't get us at all. And I said, right here, man, that's the generation gap. They're all doing these dances and they were great. And I love our softball girls, but I'm like, yeah, everything is so focused on, impressions and getting views and getting likes. And so just the nature, I think, of the technology has created that in our society overall. I mean, I could talk for hours about social media and its impact on society in the classroom and sports and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the history teacher coming out in you.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is. Well, how do you think that's changed how you go about building a program, a sports program at the high school level? I mean, it used to be there was kind of this playbook. I feel like, you go to the youth programs and you make connections with the schools that kind of feed into your school, or the ones you think so, and the youth programs. And it was just kind of this logical move from, the ones who were around you. Yeah, they had a couple choices, but the different parishes or different youth programs, we're going to Benet,
Yeah.
but now, that's kind of thrown out the window. Right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I've got a great answer to that too. And
All right.
I'm going to go outside the CCL for that too. Well, you guys probably know which public school does a great job of keeping their kids playing for their team and uses social media and marketing as a way to make it cool to be a part of this program. See if you guys can think of it.
I have a
Local.
guess.
Yep, they've been in state championships too. Not lately, of course, because they've all been won by the CCL, but Batavia.
That was my guess. Come on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I should have given another minute. I just didn't want minutes to go by.
Dead air.
Dennis has done. He's done an amazing job. And I mean, those kids are at games. They do videos, awesome highlight videos after every game. And I'm thinking, man, yeah, if I'm a fourth grade kid, yeah, you want to be a part of that. It's awesome. So, I think that's a great example of a program that uses social media to their favor and keeps kids in house. I saw a picture of kids too, football guys. And it said something about one town, one team. I believe that was in reference to right? Keep it, hey, this is one town, one team, this keeping our kids here. And it was pretty cool. I actually admire that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Rather than, say either whether complain about it or whatever, or try to get rules changed or whatever, you got to go after it and, and highlight your strengths. And that's definitely a strength of Batavia, and you kind of think of it. I always think of that as more small city. And I mean, they aren't huge city, but they're not small either. They're not downstate. They're not, they are a big city with, options for those kids that can go to Catholic schools. They can go to Marmion, they can go to Benet, they can hop on the highway and go to Naz if they want. But yeah, it's a great example of a school using social media to their advantage.
Yeah. And I'm proud to say I have sworn off social media. I have zero. I just look at the time I was spending. So I'm not the guy I'm certainly not the social media expert, but I do think it's important. And in our program, we've got strength coach and another assistant coach who do an awesome job of marketing and putting things out there. And you need somebody. So if you're not a social media guy as a head coach, then you need somebody to assign to that,
Yeah. And that wasn't the case in 2010.
No, 2016 even. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's more than just putting a tweet out there or something, right? I mean, now you got to put together, clips and segments and some video and, all that kind of stuff. So you're right.
Well, and if I could add too, one of the, when you're talking about like the climate of sports and I think you guys have talked about this in the past, but to me, one of the biggest changes in the last 10 years is travel sports. And I will tell you, because this is an inside view, man, we go to the all conference meeting with all the coaches and every coach says the same thing. I mean, baseball used to be baseball tournaments Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then they went Thursday through Sunday. And then, so we would adjust our summer. And now, you're playing championship games on Mondays. I mean, they're gone. Some of these guys were gone all week. And in other programs, I talked to coaches from other programs in the CCL. They said the same thing. So you're competing not only against other schools, but you're competing against other sports, which is really a shame. I think to me, that's a terrible trend. And football's hard. It's a tough sport. So that's one of the biggest sales jobs of football coaches.
So do you think that's with, so you mentioned baseball and, I know softball's the same way, but I'm thinking of some of the other sports. I mean, there's other sports out there too, which are kind of following the same suit, right? To where the travel or club teams and they're taking up a lot of time.
Yeah. Volleyball, both boys and girls. Basketball obviously AAU is huge. Yeah.
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse. Yeah, they've got fall leagues. Yeah, no doubt. And I've talked to college coaches, and you guys have talked recruiting, and I've talked to college coaches who used to come in and say, "Hey, man, we love multi-sport athletes." And I was like, "Really?" And I love what this one coach said. He goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "I love to see a quarterback who pitches because when you're pitching with a 1-run lead in the bottom of the 7th and the bases are loaded, you're in a competitive situation." And there's no coaching for that. That's development. And I was like, man, that's a great point. That was an awesome point.
But is that at odds with what, like you were just talking about, I'm sure, and other coaches mentioned this too, some of the ones that we've talked to and interviewed, they said, baseball takes up so much of their time, and some of the club sports. And then you have college coaches coming in recruiting saying, we love multi-sport athletes. Yeah. You're like, what am I supposed to be doing here? Yeah, this kid's going to play football in college. That's why you're here to see him, but I don't have him 25% of the time because he's playing in 2 other sports as well. So I don't know. I feel like there's this competition, like you mentioned, Pat, between the sports, not only the high school sports, but also the, club and travel sports as well. And then you've got the college coaches telling, we want them to play a bunch of different sports. We want multi-sport athletes. So I don't know. I think they're kind of encouraging well.
Yeah, there's a lot of certainly a lot of conflicting viewpoints on that coming from all.
And let's be reasonable and real about it. So if you wake up on a Wednesday morning and you've got the opportunity to go play baseball or go to football practice,
right?
It's like
we'll take some BP or
shag fly balls, or
get hit by a really angry guy.
Yeah.
You're
So,
going to run me into the ground.
yeah. Yeah. Because you said it right, Pat. It's very simple. Football is hard,
Mhm.
and if there's choice, you've got to have that kid who's going to choose football practice on a Wednesday in the summer with no game coming up over baseball. That's a unique kid.
Yep.
There's special ones that do both and everything, but that's a unique kid that
Yep.
that will choose that over that baseball game.
Yeah, go watch on YouTube Tom Brady talking about how football is hard. It was a great, I thought a great speech by Tom Brady on how football's different. Football's hard, and
Yeah.
that was he said it so well. It really articulated it well.
I think I've seen that. That is a really good speech. Yeah,
Yeah.
he makes a great point too.
Do you think there's a future in high school sports where, maybe when you're talking about basketball or talking about football, let's just talk about those two, where some kids just do their club or travel and don't compete on their high school teams anymore?
Oh, it's I know it's happening in soccer.
Yeah.
And yeah, soccer was the big one. I've seen some kids at Benet. We had one kid who was super elite soccer team, a male athlete, and then girls. It's happened with girls as well, girls soccer. But I haven't seen it. Yeah, I haven't seen it in other sports. I know basketball has been really good at AAU knows, hey, it's the high school window. They back
Right.
off, and then it's AAU window. Basketball's
Mhm.
been good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Football will always be hard because it takes so much practice. And
Right.
like you said, there's so much buildup for one game a week.
Yeah. Right.
That you're going to play in September. So to feel like I have to be at a 7 a.m. practice in June doesn't, I can see where a kid says it doesn't make sense, or I don't need that, or whatever. But yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. Every coach we've interviewed has highlighted, as far as working with the summer. And I know the state has a difficult time trying to put that schedule together where, someone can find some balance. And
Yeah.
I remember the old athletic director at Benet, Gary Goforth, used to say, he was like a big time athlete in high school and college, but he used to say, whatever sport is next should be the one you're focusing on.
Totally agree. It's a great point.
Yeah.
Can I make a old man, good old days comment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
We
want to hear
love
it.
those. We are old men. So,
Okay, because it's always good old days. Our days were better, but I will argue there's no question. Little League Baseball, 10, 11, 12, because you played in Downers, right? And I played in Naperville. Playing your city championship with local kids in front of where there was like two deep around the field for your championship was 10 times better than playing in a tournament championship on a Monday morning at 10 a.m. when there's 5 parents in the stands.
Exactly.
It was the coolest thing in the world because you had all your buddies and you'd play against your buddies. And I get it's never going to go back to that, but it was the coolest experience in the world. It was awesome.
Yeah. I get chills thinking about it.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing at Dorhofer and Downers Grove. And
Oh,
where did
yeah.
you play? Knock Park, right?
Knock Park, man. And we used to say it was the best too. We used to have in junior high, you'd have your buddies showing up, all the, cute girls would come out they would line the fence. And so you'd go show. I was great, man. It was fantastic, man.
Yeah.
And
Joe would call me on like Monday mornings and be like, well, we made the championship for softball. He's like, there's me and 2 other dads here for the championship game Monday morning at 10 o'clock.
Taking a day off work. Yeah. To sit here with 4 other people. Yeah.
We won a championship on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock in softball, and it was freezing.
Yeah.
You get to the point where you're like, I don't care if we win or lose. Can we please just get this game over? And I'm sure I wasn't like that in the moment.
And you paid, several $1,000s for that right
to be in that tournament.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Tournament director's home sleeping. Somebody just bring me the check. Yeah.
The one of the things we talked about, Pat, this just popped into my head when we were talking about playing some of these other things, but the whole right to play, I'm not sure that's what they're calling it in Illinois, but it's allowing kids who are currently competing on their high school teams in a sport. So let's for example, football. Got a football game on Friday, and somebody set up on Sunday a kind of a combine type thing or recruiting type thing that the kids can go to. Now they can go to it. Before they weren't able to. Would you want your kids, going to this on a Sunday after they played on Friday?
Not at
Say
all.
it's 7-on-7 tournament.
Yeah.
Not at all. And I will tell you, like we had one kid I know do some lacrosse tournament, and I remember I talked to a coach from the South Side who told me his freaking quarterback pitched in a baseball game on a Sunday. And so, so it's not just, it's happening everywhere, and then,
Right.
I had a kid, wanted to do lacrosse. I'm like, no, you can't do lacrosse. And I remember Coach Heidkamp, got on me because I did something in the weight room with guys during the basketball season when I had football guys playing basketball, and he was pretty mad, and he had the right to be. I'm like, oops, sorry, won't do that again. Yeah, I think it goes back to Coach Goforth. I think when it's your season, you should be dedicated, specifically focused on your team in your season. I'm actually really strong on that one. I have a strong opinion on that one.
Yeah, I think the impetus for it was a golfer, right, Dan?
For a runner. I've heard
Golfer or
stories
runner?
of a
Oh, yeah.
runner too, running in a charity event that benefited an illness or something that affected someone in her family. It was like you read that story and you're like, absolutely, that person should be able to do this.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
And they lost their eligibility for a while, and they had to take them to court. But now it applies to all sports, right? They can't just have it apply to cross country or golf.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see the time. I do. I think, and Pat, you can weigh in here, but I've said before on the podcast that there will be some sort of all-star game, 7-on-7 tournament that the kid will say, I am not playing Friday night. Maybe their team is bad, right? Maybe they're out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I can perform well at this given tournament, or what do you call it? Combine event. I think it's coming. I do. I think it's coming. It'll be newsworthy.
If we talk about trickle down from college, look at these bowl games. I think it was Florida State they had like 10 starters missing because they're all getting ready for the combine, for the NFL. And if you don't make the top 12 in the college playoffs now, tons of those guys are leaving. It would be a terrible thing if that happened in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things like that I don't know if we're going to be able to stop the train.
No.
The train is on the tracks, right? And chugging along. And it just feels like, every year there's something new, which is pushing high school sports in a completely different direction, in my opinion. And unfortunately, the days, when we played and, even other people, going back, say 20 years, those days are, really in the rearview mirror now, right?
Yeah. And you just wonder what it'll be like in 20 years from now. And what's the next big change that and you could take this, Pat, and far as probably add societal issues to it as well, expanding on sports, but it's continuously changing. It just seems to be happening really fast.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, one thing, Joe, I don't know if we have time to go over one more thing I wanted to talk about.
Let's do it.
The one thing, Pat, we noticed and this year in the Catholic League, and we talked about it, is and we've touched on a little bit of the collection of talent in some of these divisions. And I know they reshuffled the deck, which is probably going to help this. And they changed the playoff system, which will also help this. But the discrepancy, I'm thinking of it in the regular season, the discrepancy between some of the divisions this year in the CCL, it was massive. And you would watch some of these games and you're like, well, these teams are all supposed to be in the same league. This team doesn't belong on the same field with this team. Is there anything, I know shuffling the deck helps with that, but I don't know if that's going to get worse or if it gets better or if everyone just has to buck up and say, hey, you got to be better, or it's we have an issue here where we've got to address this in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if you guys feel like that's a thing, but I felt like it strictly, almost from a podcast perspective, is well, these games aren't entertaining.
Yeah.
And this is a great league. Well, it's a great league for 12 teams, not the other 12.
Yeah, I think we mentioned this, and Pat, you can weigh in on this, but maybe getting to a point where instead of, the way it's constructed now with the divisions of 4 teams, the 6 divisions of 4 teams, where you need to change that. Maybe 3 divisions of 8 teams,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah.
group them accordingly and let them play each other, for 8 games. You got one, you can do one crossover game or one rivalry game with somebody, in the same area as you, to get your 9 games in, and, it could still be the Chicago Catholic League, but it'd be 3 different divisions, I think, grouped accordingly. Because I'm not going to mention any names of schools, but I can just picture certain schools within the league playing other schools within the league. And like you mentioned, Dan, I mean, it wouldn't even be a game, right?
Yeah, it's not. It looks like it's not fair. You're like, you almost don't want to watch it.
Well, and we can look at the results. I mean, we were in the purple division last year, and when the purple played the blue, I mean, it was ugly in every game. It just wasn't competitive. Yeah, I mean, and what you're going to get, of course, is if you're in the blue, you're going to say these crossovers work really well, and if you're, if you're, it's like, it's the old tax, who pays taxes type of argument, and if you're in the purple, you're going to be like, this does not work. It's not, they need to be playing tougher teams. So, I mean, that's the argument's always going to kind of roll that way.
Yeah, and there's always going to be schools that don't like it either way. So, Joe, we talked about if you do 3 divisions of 8, that middle division, maybe they're like, well, every game we have is this awesome game. But part of me is like, you just gut it out, and especially now maybe this is all meaningless because you can get in with 2 wins if you're in the CCL in future years. So maybe it doesn't matter anymore, but still you've got to have, you got to play 9 weeks, and there are people that want to watch games or whatever. And it's like, well, this seems like it's almost like some of them were a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, there's one other component to it. I mean, again, I love all sports, and, basketball, baseball don't deal with this. In football, if you're outmatched, you're going to see injuries happen. And
yeah, for sure.
Teams that are just physically bigger and stronger and more physical, that's what you see. You go play some of these top teams, and there's 3 or 4 kids, who are, 3, 4, 5 kids who are going to the doctor the next day. And you don't get that in baseball and basketball. You can go play Benet, Maris, Simeon, all these teams, and, you're not going to lose 4 guys to injury. So,
boy, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. And if you're going to have teams with a dozen of those guys, it makes it even more likely. Right. Yeah. I remember we played St. Viator, and they had Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're, and Joe, he's a pro, right? And we were a good team. I think we won the game, but he literally was like bashing guys off, as he was running down the field. It's like, well, that's a different animal, than anybody on our team, but so for a team to have a dozen of those guys, it's like, whoa, you've got big problems.
Yeah, for sure.
You can have guys laying down. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, Pat and Dan, that was awesome. I'm sure we could go on another hour.
For sure.
Or 2.
For sure. Yeah.
Talking about this stuff. Pat, we really appreciate you coming on. And for everyone listening, if you got something out of this, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe, follow, and like. Share it with somebody out there, a parent, a player, a coach, someone else who would love to hear this. And this is the Varsity Voices Media Network, and we'll keep bringing you conversations that matter. And we'll see you next time.